Hey everybody, welcome back to the Fantasy Football Endgame. Big shout out to our Endgame community. Thanks for joining us as always. I'm Pierre, he's Chris, and we're here to give you our boom picks for Week 11, some of the players that we think might go off. All right, Chris, you are up first.
I'm going to say Kendrick Bourne is going to boom in Week 11. He's only had 4 or more targets in 3 games, but he's scored 14 or more fantasy points in 4 games. So he has that boom potential. In fact, he kind of boomed here in Week 10. Now he's in the perfect spot to boom. It's the Atlanta Falcons. We saw what the Falcons did for that Dallas Cowboys offense, so a great spot for him to boom this week, even if he only gets 4 or fewer targets again. Plus, Mac Jones is playing lights out right now. Going to be tough for the Falcons to get ready for this offense. So I think Kendrick Bourne is a guy you could put in your lineup as a high upside flex play who could boom in Week 11.
These are guys who really dependent on the big play, and so that brings to mind Donovan Peoples-Jones. He had a 3-game streak of 70 or more receiving yards, and he had gotten 3 touchdowns within a 3-week span. Good news, for Week 11, they're playing the Detroit Lions. You've got to think a team like Cleveland will bounce back. Peoples-Jones, a great chance to hit on one of those big plays. So he's a guy, of course, there's always risk, but again, this is why these are not must starts, but booms. Guy who could go off. I like Peoples-Jones as a flex play in Week 11. All right, who else do you like?
I like Mark Ingram again. Had a great game if you picked him up off waivers in place of Alvin Kamara. I think he can have another nice game even if Kamara plays here, because going up against the Philadelphia Eagles defense, that's not really great against the run, but does a great job limiting wide receivers. We saw a couple weeks ago before the Kamara injury, Mark Ingram only had 3 less touches than Alvin Kamara in that game. We know Trevor Siemian will dump the ball off. And last week, Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams combined for 100 yards and a touchdown against this defense. So I think there's enough here for both Kamara and Ingram. Obviously, if Kamara sits, Mark Ingram becomes another must-start running back. But even if Kamara is back, I still think Mark Ingram can boom for you in your lineup.
That's right. Some backfields, there's room for more than one running back. Tennessee backfield is not necessarily one that you want to target for fantasy these days, but guess who had the most carries for the team in Week 10? Of course, it was D'Onta Foreman, who everyone has forgotten about, the former Texan, somebody who's missed a lot of time because of knee issues. He led the team in carries. Didn't do a lot with them, granted, right? 11 carries, 30 yards. Did chip in 48 receiving yards. So if Foreman is going to get more touches, this is a great spot for him going against his former team in Houston. They've given up over 100 yards rushing to running backs in 7 of their 9 games. So he could definitely boom. And of course, we're seeing Tannehill take the ball in around the goal line himself. What if he actually hands it off this time, and what if it's D'Onta Foreman? I like the fact that he's getting more involved. We know he's probably the most talented running back in this backfield. I think that this matchup begs him at least to be considered as a flex play. All right, who else do you like in Week 11?
It's been a while since Amari Cooper has boomed, but I think it's going to happen this week. Going up against Kansas City Chiefs, if there's ever a spot to boom, this is it. I know they looked better defensively against the Raiders on Sunday night, but I'm not buying that this Kansas City defense is suddenly a great defense. This is still a bad defense that you can take advantage of. The Cowboys are an elite offense. This should be an absolute shootout. And we know Cooper always has that boom potential. So yeah, the last couple weeks have not been booms. They've been more like busts. But he rebounds here in Week 11, and he booms for your fantasy team.
Yeah, I kind of was disappointed by Cooper. I thought he would boom last week against the Falcons. Turns out every other Cowboy did. But guy who was plucked off the waiver wire in a lot of leagues, and that's Eno Benjamin taking over the Chase Edmonds role in Arizona. I know he did basically nothing last week, but so did all of Arizona's offense. I think it's time for Kyler Murray to come back. I think he's coming back this next week. Of course, we don't know for sure. But here's why I like Benjamin. He profiles almost identically to Chase Edmonds physically, right? The stature, the way he moves, the way he profiles in terms of his strengths. In Week 11, he's going to go against Seattle, and Seattle has given up the most receiving yards to running backs. I think we're going to see Benjamin involved as a receiver, and that's where his strength's going to lie. We've seen what he can do. If you watch that highlight play from a couple weeks ago where he just trucked Drake Kirkpatrick, he is a talented runner as well. So if he gets enough touches, I think he has a sneaky good fantasy game in Week 11. All right, we're about to give you our final boom picks, but before we share those, there are a lot more ways that we help you win each and every week. Check the description to find out more. All right, let's get to it. Who is your final boom?
I always like to target good players coming off bad games. And Mike Gesicki fits that bill perfectly. Coming off the worst game, 7 targets, no catches. But this is a good player and a very good fantasy player. And I think he's going to boom. The last time we saw him have 0 fantasy points, he boomed the very next week. 7 targets, like I said, on Thursday night, 8 targets the week before. This is a guy getting the targets and the volume necessary to have boom games. So don't fret about Mike Gesicki. Don't think, okay, he's no longer a startable tight end. He is. He's an every week start. But not only that, I think he rebounds from a 0-point game and gives you a huge game here in week 11.
I think at least fact know that Tua is going to be the starter. They've already announced that. That's going to help. He's shown that he's got that connection with Gesicki. All right, so let's finish with a tight end here, guy that you have not thought about since you drafted him and then probably dropped him after a couple of weeks. That's Adam Troutman. He's back because Trevor Siemian at quarterback has changed the dynamic of this offense. The last 3 weeks, Troutman has gotten 6, 7, and 6 targets. Not super productive in terms of fantasy yet, but guess what? On tap next week, Philadelphia, who gives up the most fantasy points to tight ends. All right, there is some opportunity for him to get involved. So if you're looking for a tight end streamer, I like Troutman potentially as a boom play. All right, that does it for week 11. Guys, check out our bust video as well, so we tell you who we don't like quite so much. Again, we're always here to help you win, so hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. We definitely appreciate that. All right, thanks for watching.